Yeah,
All right.
the word
Huh?
that keeps going to mind is train wreck.
Train wreck? Okay. All right. So, I think I figured out the audio from last time. So, uh, I got my trusty earbud in. I think that'll fix the issue.
Yeah, now the issue is you brought somebody else in to cause the ruckus.
Right. Right. So
Yep.
this must have
Are we
been God's.
recording?
Huh?
We're recording.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
This was God's providence. Me and Derek have been trying to do a conversation about intention, and our intention was not met with success.
A lot of failure in that intention.
Yep, yep. But
That's
what they
kind of how life
say.
is, though. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they say. If at first you don't succeed, quit. Don't be stupid about it.
No, if at first you don't succeed, skydiving's not for you.
Yeah.
We're off to a great start.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to get this down, and I think we were just talking before we start recording about how important it is about the subject of intention. It is a small. It seems like a small thing, but it's really quite huge.
Hmm.
So so when we talk about the Great Commission and Jesus's intention, that's one thing that we've said at least twice, right, Derek? Um,
Yep.
about Jesus being very focused and very uh, um, unwavering. I guess we should define what intention is, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, intention itself is great, but like, what was his intention? Like, I mean, we talk about the word intention a lot. In other words, we're not just hoping something will happen. We're not just leaving it to chance. We have a very specific focus and reasoning for doing the things that we do. But what we want to happen, our intention leads to a certain expectation. And Jesus had a very clear intention of what he was doing, but the what set his intention was the Father's purpose and plan for him.
Right.
Does that make sense? So intention
So
is good, but if you have
strategy
wrong
was
intention, it's
so
not going to
his
get you very far.
strategy was his strategy was a part of his intention or the
Right.
strategy the father gave him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What got modeled for him became his intention.
Which
So he
is
what
what
he saw is he repeated it.
which was in the Great Commission. When he said, I have all authority, because I have all authority, basically, I'm the guy in charge here. This is my orders. And my intention is for you to go and make disciples of all nations. That, in a nutshell, is the standard and how you evaluate. And that will tell you your intention. Is that is that confusing enough?
Well, yeah. So what are you trying to produce? What are you trying to
Right.
what's your ultimate end goal? And most Christians' ultimate end goal is to make a name for yourself, or build a ministry, or build a church, or build whatever, something to leave behind. They feel like they did something, accomplishment. And I mean, if Jesus lived by that model, he failed. Like, he did a poor job of leaving an entity behind.
Mm-hmm.
What he left behind was his life buried and invested in 12 guys,
Mm-hmm.
and that changed the
Yeah.
world. So
And you evaluate yourself on that. So if making disciples of all nations is your intention, then you evaluate everything from that.
right.
So how do most people evaluate success or failure in this life as a believer?
Well,
Well,
yeah. Personally, the personal one is not sinning, like living a holy life, which is good for pretty much. I'm not saying don't live holy. I'm not saying don't live righteous, but like, at the end of the day, if you did it, then what's the fruit of it? You know, a clean belly button. We talk about fuzz in the belly button. At the end of the day, your belly button is clean. Whoopee. That lifestyle should evolve out into something else than just, hey, I did good things. I didn't lie, cheat, or steal, or whatever. So personally, I think most intentions of Christians is to live this holy lifestyle or live a good life, which is a trap. Or secondly, is the intention of most churches is to build crowds and build a name.
And how do you know that's their goal and intention?
Well, look what they're doing. Like everything they do revolves around the Sunday morning crowd. And when they talk, they say, "Oh, we had a good Sunday because our crowd was bigger."
Mm.
Well, where's the measure of that in the Gospels? Like every time Jesus had a crowd, he ran it off. I mean, crowds frustrated him
Yeah.
and moved him off his intention. So he had to like constantly deal with them so he could make it clear for his guys that that wasn't what he was trying to do.
And Derek, you said something twice at least about about people getting their belly full.
Yeah, about like Jason's talking about with the crowd. It's almost like Jesus catered to the crowd. You can't say that he didn't, but he didn't commit himself to the crowd like he committed himself to the disciples or the 12 disciples. And they got their belly full in such a big story of the two feedings of the 4,000 and 5,000, but ultimately the crowd got exactly what they wanted. Their intentions were met, and Jesus catered to a point to those intentions. Like their intentions were, well, this is the king we want. He feeds us out in the wilderness. It's like we see him like we want him to be. And at the same time, when their intentions began to become a result in John 6, where they came to make him king, Jesus gets the heck out of Dodge and goes back to the ones that he had full intentions with to reach the world. It never was the crowd. The crowd was never going to reach the world. And that's the problem as a 20, 22, almost 23-year veteran of the institutional setting in ministry. I can say that from experience, most pastors think the bigger their crowd is, the better they're doing at reaching the world. And what we're saying is the intentions of Jesus was not to burn the crowd up, to destroy the crowd, but he would not commit himself, the truth, the knowledge the Father gave him to the crowds because ultimately their intentions were wrong. So Jesus took that small group of guys and yet they screwed up. They were knuckleheads and didn't get it, but they got it. And the way we know they got it's because we got it.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, pass it on.
And I would think for me personally, I'm sitting here thinking, I thought about it even on the way over here. I'm like, I'm sitting with my two favorite disciple makers in the world. And
Where's
and at the
the other one?
same, yeah, yeah, yeah. And
My
at the
cat in
same
here again.
time, here I'm sitting with my two favorite disciple makers, and y'all are both screw ups. Hallelujah, right?
I'm glad you
That's,
recognize
that's, that's,
that.
that's the prerequisite.
but, but your intentions have never changed since I met you. And
Mm.
that's what's awesome. And that yeah, and of course God sharpened the intentions, right? He sharpened it. But the intentions have never changed. And I think, you go back to Jesus and what and what his intentions were with the different groups of people that he interacted with. I don't think his intentions changed, but it's like he allowed himself, he was so free to move by the power of the Spirit, the truth of the Word, and who God was, that he was still impacting thousands and thousands of people, but he did not commit himself to those thousands and thousands. And he committed time, effort, teaching to the ones
Mm.
that he was trusting the Word and the Spirit to change them to the point of their intentions would be just like his to reach the world
Yeah, I hadn't
with this
really ever
message.
thought about it, but as you're talking, I'm thinking, Jesus has a set intention, but in his interaction with people, he's revealing theirs.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah.
So he's dealing with the Sadducees, he's dealing with the Pharisees, he's dealing with all these different groups of people, and and just the interaction reveals their intention, which Jesus would use as a way to say, look, watch out for that thinking, right? So maybe you could say Jesus wasn't catering to the crowds as much as he was trying to filter through the crowds to emerge
Mm,
the ones who had an
yeah,
intention that really wanted to be set. And there were, I mean, there's people in those crowds that really, really wanted to follow the Lord. They really wanted to be, honor God and walk in a way that was pleasing to Him. So it's not like that the whole crowd was corrupt.
yeah,
But crowds are fickle things. I mean, people are great, but crowds are stupid. I mean, you can see that in crowd thinks you get these mobs that do stuff that they normally wouldn't do on their own, but when you get in a crowd, they do horrendous stuff. They
Yeah.
break into stuff, burn buildings down, all that kind of craziness. So I think Jesus was constantly challenging the crowd so he can emerge their intention and maybe show a mirror to what their thinking was that they could repent and maybe change their mind, which
mm,
to me is the most gracious thing a person could do for you. If God doesn't do that for me, I'm sunk. If He doesn't challenge my thinking through other people or through the Word or through whatever, there's no way for me to repent or change my mind. So it's a
And I think
gracious gift.
your intention not only drives what you do, but I think it also dictates how the Father interacts with you, right? Like,
Mm.
if your
so
intention,
unpack that a little bit.
like with Jesus, whenever the Pharisees would come and their intention was to trap him, their intention was to discredit him or to knock him down.
Right.
He became very aggressive and laid them open, you know, gut them, and you know, or if they threatened, their intention was to threaten his 12. He would do things for their sake, or if anybody in the group,
Yeah.
like Peter, he would
Yeah.
lay them open.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like I don't care about your intention until your intention invades on my intention. When it does
Mm,
that
that's a
and
good way
it's
to say
gonna
it.
yeah,
take it off course, I'm gonna say something.
and when our intention starts matching the intention of the Father, and in relation, connection to that is the intention of Jesus, then he leans into us, and
Mm.
he leans into dumping that. We talked about an information dump when we were having our
Yeah.
conversation, Jason. Just God just backs it up and dumps it on you
Mm.
because he sees your intention as matching his, which
Yeah. Not
is
perfectly necessarily, but at
no.
least the majority of way you're trying to lean into what He's wanting to do. Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as you say yes, making disciples of all nations, that is my drive, that is my goal, that is my intention, and anything else outside of that is, it's not that it's not important, it's just not dominant.
Yeah, like Derek and I've had lots of conversations about kingdom ideas, and I think that's the point. Like your intention is aligned with God's, you're stepping into His kingdom mindset, and the minute you start trying to make it about what you want or what someone else wants, you're stepping back out and getting to that my kingdom and my way thing, and
Right.
God will just kind of stick His hand in your chest, and you'll just that's enough.
Well, isn't it amazing that, and Bill's real good at this, is like, and I've even been questioned about this the last week or two, with some things I've said on Sundays of giving people freedom to interpret
Mm,
the truth. Not that there needs to be an interpretation, but there is a freedom to make this what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And with that though, it's like the information dump is coming, and it's like you're getting
mm,
all this information. And what's amazing about it is what I would struggle with early on with all the information is, man, God must really love me because look at what all this revelation I'm getting. And it's just,
yeah,
and it's in the minute that our mind goes to that information is for me, is the minute that revelation, that understanding ceases to go any further. And so it just lays there. But then all of a sudden, when my intention switch back to, oh, I'm getting this for others, and you begin to feed, what a great what a great truth about revelation and
mm,
intention, like the revelation of truth and intention, because your intentions drive your chances of having a greater revelation of who God is, of what God wants you to be. But if your intentions with the truth is always here, which most people, that's like I'm taking notes for me because I
yeah,
might have an issue this coming week. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But where's it rigged? You talked about that in our two times of trying to figure this thing out yesterday. It's rigged. Explain that some, Bill. Like, and
Yeah.
y'all talk about the idea of the rigged.
Well, if you were to ask the Joe Schmo believer, what are you trying to what are you trying to do? And they would say, well, I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to please God. I'm trying to please my fellowship. I'm trying to please my pastor. I'm trying whatever. Or it would be very much inward focused, and which is a trap.
Yeah.
If you're reading the Bible so you can learn, if you're reading the Bible, if you're serving people so you can feel validated or feel worth something or worthy or whatever. But if it's constantly curling back on yourself, then it's a trap,
Mm.
and you're going to end up actually the opposite of what you're looking for. You're
Yeah.
gonna, it's just
Dead
like
ends. Yeah.
you're going to be so trapped in the focus of you that I heard a comedian talk about think about all the maintenance that just goes into you. All the brushing and wiping. It's like you're your own pet.
Some of us do less maintenance than others.
Yeah, exactly. It's getting easier. More like combing your hair with a towel. So, so, so,
Mm.
but
Let,
but
let me point out though, as a side, that Derek's hair is nicely gelled and formed and looks
This
really,
is the
really good.
first time
And
that has been
his
that way.
beard is manicured very nicely. I'm here in jogging pants and a t-shirt,
yeah, yeah,
and
Bill, you can
you're
attest
lucky
to
I took a shower today.
this is not the norm for me. This is you caught me on a day
uh,
when I was
you
dressing
always got
up.
you always got that GQ look going on, man. What you talking about? Uh,
That's why he keeps us around because we make him look better. Like,
that's right.
look,
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm
It's,
that's
pretty compared to them two ugly knuckleheads.
it's the
You know what's crazy,
contrast.
dude? Derek, that thing you were talking about a minute ago about how you kind of got some flack the other morning when you preached about the idea of like letting people kind of read it for themselves. And I'm gonna call you brilliant. Now, whether you're intended to do this or not, but I'm thinking you did exactly what Jesus did. Jesus introduced an idea and let them read it through their own lens in order to reveal their own intentions.
Mm, yeah.
And so when someone comes to you and says, "Hey, this is how I see it," you're really starting to understand where they're coming from, which gives not only you as a disciple maker some room to kind of help them navigate out of that, but you also recognize that, oh, okay, as a systemic thing in my church, this is where our thoughts go. This is where we how
yeah,
we read truth and how it it curls back on us, and it gives you a little bit of room to say, okay, maybe we can move from that position a little closer to God's intention in this area. So kudos, man. I know it kind of gave you some flack for it, but I think it's a powerful tool. It's a powerful way to.
Yeah, and when your intention changes, though, talking about the rig part of it, when your intention changes, then all those things you were chasing to be, or this is what we said, our conversation, Jason, these ideas of humility and passion and kindness and long suffering, patience with people, and having a genuine love for people and the love for the world, those things just pop out
Yeah,
yeah,
because your intention has changed, not to be on yourself, but to impact the world, because
yeah,
you have to be those things in order to do what Jesus did. So
yeah,
in order to be Jesus, you got to have the same intention. You got to have the same goal. You got to have the same chutzpah and drive and everything that he had, which was make disciples of all nations. When he
mm,
showed up, he was his father's disciple, and in that he made disciples, because that's what
yeah,
it is. And I steal what you've said the last two times,
yeah,
Derek. You can't be a disciple without
yeah,
making
yeah,
disciples.
yeah.
well, and that was one thing that I remember. You reminded me of something I said that wasn't me yesterday, the last time we recorded, but that
Mm-hmm.
idea of the fruits of the spirit, where it was like for years I'm crying out like I want this love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, self-control, and it's like that is a rigged part of it because
Mm,
the spirit is not attracted to selfish intentions.
right.
The Holy Spirit is attracted to the intentions of the King.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, well, why am I not? And I'm not perfect with receiving with that, but the only time that I really started seeing the fruit of the spirit manifest itself in me is when my intentions changed with individuals in this process of disciple making.
Mm.
And it's this idea of I've got to be patient, man, and I suck at patience. And you know as well, both of you know as well as I know, that if you don't have that Holy Spirit gift with individuals, you ain't gonna do it. But you don't get that.
Yeah.
I just think that that is the spirit shows up where the intentions of God are true and pure, not
Mm.
necessarily in the ones acting perfect and doing it through perfect obedience, but the ones that share the heart with the Father and with the Savior, which is the world is on my mind and people are the way that we
Mm.
reach that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's make an honest statement about this. Like when my intentions are for me, I really want to throat punch people. Like people get on my nerves. Like I don't want to be around them. I just rather just punch them. So the fact that I would care enough about somebody to invest my time and my life into them tells me God is at work. Because I personally
Yeah.
I don't
get
think I've
nervous.
used that statement the whole time Bill and I have been. I don't think I've used that statement yet, Dillingham. Throat punch.
It's my it's the it's it's I think it's a culmination of you talk about the fruit of the spirit versus the flesh. I think you could sum up the fruit of the flesh in the one
Mm.
word throat punch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a selfish. I want my way and
Right.
my agenda.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but isn't it amazing though when you're trucking along at your own in your own little zone, worried, only about yourself, only worried about whether or not you're going to make it or not, only trudging yourself back and forth to sit under truth so you can grab something that'll make you survive for a couple of days.
Yeah.
uh, and it changes from I'm just hand to mouth, hand to mouth, hand to mouth, hand to mouth. Oh, here's some truth. Okay, that's good for me. Oh, that's good for me. And and then when the intention changes, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got more than enough to share.
Mm,
you know
wow.
the abundance, that abundant life you talk about. How many times we talked about, have you heard talked about the abundant life, and it always eventuates back into you being happy.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know
and having all my wants met. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, abundant life means you have that,
Yeah.
you have enough for yourself and enough to share. That's what
That it
abundance means.
overflows. Yeah.
Yeah.
That it's overflowing into others are there with a cup, catching the overflow, receiving. Yeah.
I just saw an amazing picture that I never really thought about with the manna. Like God was trying to teach them to trust Him, to be generous, not be
Mm.
self-serving, not not hoard up, not like you can trust me today, but you can also trust me tomorrow.
Mm.
Like I think a lot of us think, man, if I give away, then I'm going to be without. And God's like,
Mm.
if you give away, you're going to get. Like that's how you really get something. If you
That's
try to
where
hoard it up, it just turns to nothing. It stinks.
Yeah. uh, I see Derek flipping. He's looking for something.
I'm looking for something that I saw this morning on Twitter.
Oh,
That was
Man,
going to get our Bible open and be
yeah, I did
spiritual
too.
for a minute.
wow, come on, man, come on. Here, I want you to listen to this. I want you to listen to this real quick. All right, it's talking about Steve Jobs. It says,
Oh yeah, I saw that.
um, yeah, he's talking about his last words. Says at this moment, lying in bed, sick and remembering, this is him, this is his quotes. Sick and remembering my whole life, I realize that all the recognition and wealth I have is meaningless in the
Mm,
face of imminent death. I have the money to hire the best at any task, but it is not possible to hire someone to carry my disease. Man, that's
mm.
unbelievable.
Wow.
Money can get you all kinds of material things, but there's one thing you can't buy: life. He goes on to say, as I got older, I realized that a $300 watch and a $3 million watch show the same time. That with a $50,000 car and a $15 million car, we can reach the same destination. That a wine of $150 or one of $1,500 generate the same hangover. That in a house of 300 square meters or one of 3,000, the loneliness is the same. He says true happiness does not come from material things. It comes from the affection that our loved one give us. So you can read that, you can find that. I found it pretty easy, but
Yeah.
man, some of the things that he's saying, it's out away from the realm that we're talking,
Right.
but it makes perfect sense with this conversation that we're having, that Jesus's intentions were not on himself at all. At any time his intentions turned to himself, like we said the other day, he would have ceased to become the spotless lamb of God to
Mm.
take away the sin of the world, because at that moment he would have been selfish, which is the determining factor of sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, think about all that we spend our time trying to get and do and receive, and yet I think proper intention is not necessarily what you have at the end of your life. It's what continues after your life is over.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, going to the reproduction, going to the multiplication, going to what Jesus did. Because after he died, he said, "Boys, you're going to do better than I did. You're gonna maintain this thing, and you're going to be able to do it better than me."
Mm.
Before
You know,
he said
amazing
to
thought about
you,
that Steve Jobs quote that you just said. It said, he realized you couldn't buy someone to take your disease. You couldn't buy life. And like everything that can't be purchased, God came to give as a gift.
wow,
And if our
Say that
intention
one
is
more time.
everything that man can't buy that he needs, God came to give as a gift. Like it says, He carried our diseases and our sicknesses. He
Uh,
gives us life. Like everything that we can't accomplish in our own strength, God showed up in Jesus to give away as a gift to those who believe. And that's what we're called to do.
mm,
mm.
Like you can't buy friendship. I mean, you can try, but it don't. It's not true friendship. You can't buy love. It's not true love. But giving away friendship, giving away love, multiplies it.
wow,
And God invites us to be like Him in that way.
right,
And
So
we're
to
still
me, it's
talking
like,
about the rigged idea.
yeah. I mean, I'd
Love you,
like to
Dan.
see it. I'd like to see a $3 million watch. I dang sure wouldn't want to wear one because I'm just waiting for somebody to come chop my arm off.
Yeah,
So
I'm
thank
waiting to
you.
do what I do with mine, which is crack it left all the time. I'm always like,
Yeah,
bam,
yeah. Deborah
terrible.
broke hers when it ended. She dropped it on the tile floor and it cracked the face of it.
oh,
Mm, yeah.
but so Jesus, when he was walking around before he died, rose again, and ascended, had a goal, had a focus like no other, and he stood out, and he caused good things and bad things, right? So having the correct intention doesn't necessarily mean it's all going to be nice and smooth.
That's a good statement.
Well,
You
his,
got
his intention got him killed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah,
Eeks.
yeah.
Hey, Bill, I got a question for you because I know this has happened to you in the past.
Oh,
When Jesus, I mean, Jesus understood his intention and he would not waver from it,
yeah.
right? And so as we walk through this process and we start to understand clearer and clearer what Jesus' intention was and try to match our heart with His, how does that rub against certain people that
Oh
think, oh
man.
man, you're awful arrogant,
Oh yeah,
and man,
yeah.
you're just full of pride, and it's like, I mean, I know you've had that situation happen to you several times, so kind
Oh
of
man.
share like what your thinking is when that happens, and how to kind of
Well,
not battle it, but just how to process it.
it you bring up a really good point about intention and the byproduct and what it will produce. Like, once you understand that the entire world is your assignment, anything less than that is a slam dunk no.
Right.
Okay, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to ponder it. It's like God looks at each believer and goes, at this point in our history, and goes, 8.3 billion people.
Yeah.
That's your assignment. And you either say yes, sir, or you go, well, maybe,
Can we
um,
tweak it?
are you sure about that? Did you get that number right? Are you positive about that number?
Carry the
Um,
one.
you know, was that 8.3 people, or
Or was
you
that
might,
only 2,600
yeah,
miles
something
and
like
not
that.
26,000
Um,
miles
so I
circumference?
was I was in a conversation, and we were talking about impact ministry, that kind of thing, and they were saying, hey, they got this one, missionary guy, and he's approaching this people group of 11.6 million people. Well, that's good enough, right? That's good enough. And I went, no.
It's a
I
good
mean, just,
start.
I didn't even think about it. It was just no.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, Bill, that's pretty arrogant. I'm like, is it? I mean, I wasn't trying to be arrogant. It was just, it's not the world. And if it's not the world, I mean, do you think, can you imagine somebody going up to Jesus and saying, you know what, I understand your intention is salvation. I get it. You're going to die on the cross and be raised from the dead. I get it. I'm with you 100%. But really, do we have to get every nation?
Mm.
I mean, what do you think Jesus would have done? I mean, it would have been like, throat punch.
Yeah. Holy throat punch.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
the name of Jesus.
Well, and think about the idea of like you going back to the when you carry God's intention, and when we say that, we're twofold. We want to see people saved, but we also have a desire to reach the world, and we understand that in the process of the disciple making, people are going to be saved. We're not pushing salvation to the side and just disciple making.
Yeah,
It's a yes and a yes. But what is the great goes back to the John 17, which we've tried to record twice too, and those huge intentions of Jesus, which is to finish the process of building his men and ultimately finish the task of dying for the sins of the world.
right.
Those two intentions, Jesus had to have an undeniable chutzpah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like that is a spirit
And not be
engaged.
deterred one way or the other, no matter
No,
what
it's
happens.
like, and so would Jesus have been seen as a would Jesus have been seen by the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Herodians, the Zealots, all those groups of Jews in that day? Would Jesus have been seen as a one-way man?
mm,
Mm.
I mean, would he have
yeah,
been, or we could say two-way man?
yeah,
Yeah.
Like, would they have looked at him and been like, dude, we're trying everything to deter this guy. We've warned him, and he's still going.
right,
Yeah.
It's
right.
like he's walking into the fire with no fire extinguisher, no water hose. It's
Yeah,
like, this is what I got to do, and I see it, and I got to do it.
right.
Well, what's crazy is that most of the people of his day probably thought they had the same intention as him, because they're like, "You've come to build a kingdom, and so are we." Well,
That's right.
your kingdom and my kingdom ain't the same kingdom,
Right.
What was their kingdom?
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And his because of his intention, because of his drive, because of that laser focus, the things that he did made sense for him to do in that context, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But to everybody else, it looked flippant and crazy. Well, why are
yeah,
you doing that? Well, why are you doing that? Well, why are you meeting with those people? And he's like, it's important for the goal. It's important for the world impact. Why are you picking fishermen that washed out of the system? Why are you picking a tax collector,
yeah, yeah,
the a pariah of the community? Why are
mm,
you picking him? And why are you picking a zealot that's going to kill that guy?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Your brain's not connected to your shoulders there, you know, Skippy.
Which tells me when I read when I read When I read something in Scripture that Jesus does and it doesn't make sense to me, that lets me know that's part of my mindset where my intention doesn't match his.
Mm.
So I read a miracle and I go, why in the world did he do that? Why is it? Well, that don't make any sense. Well, I need to check where my thinking is because he's thinking something different than I am.
Right.
Like the feeding of the 5,000.
Right.
If we read that and go, wow, Jesus is a miracle worker, he can feed a bunch of people with a little bit of bread. Well, why did he feed 4,000? If we're just showing that he's a miracle worker, then he can do that and provide. Why does he do the second one? Seems like a waste of real estate in Scripture.
Mm.
But if you understand there's a bigger idea behind it, it
Yeah.
opens up so much, so much. So
Well,
every
and
time
we
I look at a miracle or a parable and I go, make any sense to me, then I'm missing something about his intention.
Go, Derek.
we had mentioned that. Remember, we were one of the one of the recordings yesterday. We had talked about the way Jesus moved. It was like you couldn't really pin him like like somebody could label me pretty easy. Somebody could label either all the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
They could label us. And it's not that they didn't label Jesus. They did label Jesus, but everybody got it wrong.
Mm.
Yeah.
It was
But
it
they all
was
wanted him
like
for their own purpose. They wanted to hijack him for their intention.
and his intention far outweighed their label of him.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've wrestled with personally for the 20 plus years that I've been exposed to this information and revealed this heart of God is it's like now I'm thinking they're gonna label me one way or the other.
Mm.
I can't let the label of man drive my intentions because I think that's where you are the jackass, Bill. Right?
Yeah.
What Dillingham just do?
I don't know.
Oh, I said that word and then he got off. Sorry, man. I didn't mean to say that, Jason. He's muted himself. But it goes back to and then what Jason brought up is great because why did he wait 3 days and then on the fourth day go back to Lazarus's tomb?
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's like a lot of what he did was almost to destroy the label.
Mm.
It's like, well, if he is working all these miracles, why, like the Mary and Martha said, why did it take you so long
Mm.
to come and do this for my brother? You could have come and healed him. And it's like everywhere he went, he squatted on the labels of what society was trying to pin him to. I
Right.
think that's something that the three of us do well
Mm.
for the most part. It's like they got you they got us in this box, and then it's like all of a sudden they're looking around and like that there ain't even a box. They've just destroyed the box.
Right.
And I think that is not something that the three of us can necessarily say, well, look how good we are at running from the labels. He's back again.
And he's muted. I was going to tell him he's muted as well. Um,
Yeah, I
he'll be
think he knows it.
he'll be back. He's
So to you though, and the reason I bring that up is you made that point earlier.
mm,
Again, this is kind of our third time talking about this conversation.
right.
And that's one thing I appreciate about you and Dillingham is that yeah, I've been able to be with the two of you
Mm,
on and off for 16 16 years,
yeah.
15, 16 years in that time frame. And it's been beneficial to me because you know you are going to be called a jerk
Mm,
in this process.
right.
You are going to be called crazy.
Right.
You are going to be labeled everything that you don't want to be labeled.
Right.
But your intentions will always far outweigh the label of man.
Right. Yeah, and you have to be okay with the pushback, um, because you're so focused on what it's about. You just won't accept or validate um, anybody's perspective that doesn't match up with it. And it's not that I'm trying to make people feel bad about themselves, And most of the time, I leave people alone, and you know that. I don't go. Somebody says, "Hey, I'm doing this in ministry," or "Hey, I'm doing that in ministry," and I don't go to them and go, "Hey, you're missing it. Hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Hey, you need to be doing something different." I don't do that, but usually I just sit there and nod and uh-huh, and then they go, "Well, what do you think about that, Bill? Do you think I'm doing?" Or they ask me for evaluation. You know, what do you want me
Can
to
I
do?
answer what you'll say? Knock yourself out, Skippy.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Awful.
I mean, Jason's quiet. Do we have audio on you yet?
Yeah. I just had to get something for Deborah, so I didn't want to like disrupt the
Oh,
conversation.
oh,
I
I
just put
knew
it
he
on
knew
mute
what he
for
was
a second.
doing.
oh.
Jason's
Yeah.
our tech
we
savvy
Yeah, we were
connect.
like, good. We gotta
Well,
no, we
Derek
gotta.
cussed, and I got offended for a second, so I had to get off the
That's what he said. He said,
Yeah.
"Jackass."
His intention and my intention were not in line for a moment. No, I was
Okay,
kidding.
gotcha,
I was
gotcha.
kidding. No, I had to get something out of the room for Deborah.
Oh, gotcha.
I didn't want to disrupt what you were trying to say by
Oh
me
no.
moving around.
Oh
So,
no. We've already had
um,
disruptions, so it's okay.
yeah, I don't want to. I'm trying not to make it worse.
Okay.
But yeah. I find like sometimes I'm having conversations with people about, and they're like, "Oh, we're doing this," and I fight the urge sometimes to say something because I'm hearing them say and where it leads is a dead end. Like you can go, okay, you're going to follow that road. I know where you're going to end up, and you're not going to be happy where you arrive when you get there. And I could save you a whole lot of time, but sometimes they won't hear that,
Yeah.
and you got to kind of learn to be okay with them. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
try to say, like, hey, man, if you keep heading down this road, it's going to produce X. And
Right.
I don't know that you're looking to produce X, but that's where that goes. And sometimes you can say that to somebody if you have a good enough relationship
Mm-hmm.
and they can hear it. But oftentimes, people in ministry they don't want to hear that. So I just keep my mouth shut and I just wait for them to hit that dead end, and then I'm kind of standing there like, hey,
You know,
and then being an encourager from that point.
I think I just had a revelation about
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 time.
about
Hallelujah.
We've
about
been
where my
praying for you
dad
for years.
about where my dad was. My dad, for those of you that most you whoever's listening probably doesn't know, but my dad was a pastor of four different churches during his life, and as a early 20s something guy sitting with my father, he would say, "We're missing it. We're missing it. I don't know what it is. We're missing it." And I think what it is when God begins to turn your intentions to His intentions, you start evaluating things and understanding it's something's not right, and you don't know what's right. And the problem is you don't have another model out there. You don't have anything else that you can latch onto,
Yeah.
and you've invested so much time into this system that will not produce world impact. It just can't do it. It just won't do it because
I've heard you.
it's
I've heard you tell that story a lot of times, and I'm kind of thinking I never really thought about it before, and I'm kind of curious if God tried to send somebody across his path, but maybe he couldn't see it.
that's
You know what I'm saying?
very
Like what?
possible.
Because that heart cry usually has an answer. Like you start feeling that way, God's delivering something. He's
Yeah,
bringing something along to answer that desire.
yeah. It could have been that
Sometimes
he
we
was
just can't see it or hear it. Yeah.
well. He was just so anchored into what he
Right.
was doing. I
Right.
I don't know that he could have heard it,
Right.
or it was just maybe it was so radical that he just couldn't accept it. I don't know. I mean,
Or even somebody would have planted a little bit of seed in his heart, and he didn't have the full maturity of it, but you heard something from him that maybe in like a seed that
yes.
set you up years later.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
think about it
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this. Think about it like this. Think about it. You're in um, what's a famous general?
Patton.
MacArthur.
Patton. Okay, so you're with Patton, and you're storming down into the battlefield, and he turns around and goes, "I don't know what the hell's going on."
Where are we? What are we doing?
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
know that this is going to work.
yeah. And still a confidence. I can see it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
You're
like
kind of like,
I'm dead. We're
right.
dead. It's
Yeah,
over. We're done. I mean, let me write a letter to my family, because I know I'm not going to see them again. I mean,
yeah. My
that's
word
the
would be like retreat.
right. So that was my feeling. I was like, oh crap.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I
so,
remember having a conversation with you when we started a church years ago, and I was, I had that mindset of like we need to build the thing, right? And you kept trying to like kind of implode it so it would go outward. Like you kept trying to like disrupt it so it would move out. And I couldn't ever figure out how you so easily let go of trying to build the crowd. And I remember asking you one day, how did you get to that point of where just like the crowds just do not sway you, they don't entice you, and for most people that's not true.
mm,
And I remember you telling me you watched your dad build a crowd, a large crowd in a church, and then within years it's just there's nothing to show for it. It was gone.
yeah,
And I
Mm.
remember thinking, man, that's a gift to get, because most people will spend 30
Hallelujah.
years in ministry trying to do that before they realize the futility of it.
yeah, and now some of those things are just monuments to futility.
Oh yeah, yeah. We went and visited
Just
one of
like
them.
Steve Jobs. It goes back to exactly
Exactly.
Exactly.
what we read earlier. And
Yeah.
and I'll say for me personally, in respect to your father, Bill, is that cry. Jason made that comment that when there's a heart cry, the Spirit of God will meet that. And we had this in a conversation a couple weeks ago, Bill, where I was talking about. I still remember where I was sitting at the church that I first started at over 23 years ago, and it was averaging around 700 to 900 people a Sunday, and it was connected somewhat to where you were at the time, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Those were two of the biggest churches in the county,
Mm-hmm.
and I just happened to be there. I don't understand why, but I can remember crying out and saying, "There's got to be more. There's got to be more. There's got to be more. This is futile. This is not what I thought." I got called to come to this big church to be a youth pastor. I'm working 80 to 90 hours a week.
Mm.
I've got 120 youth. I've got all these people, and it's like, this sucks. This sucks. This is horrible. This ain't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And then bam, Jason White comes in and is like a magnet, and it was earth shattering, but it was also I could breathe,
Yeah.
and from that point as a pastor, it saved me from the crowd.
Mm.
And that is what I think I would say, in my opinion, your father was crying out
Yeah.
for, is to be saved from the crowd's intention to make him something he knew he wasn't. And that's
Mm.
the same thing Jesus deferred to. That's the same thing Jesus deterred in that crowd, which was, I didn't come here to be king right now. I came here to be, of course, king of the kingdom, but you don't even see this kingdom, right? And it
Right.
ultimately, that's my path was similar, but I was set free.
Yeah.
I don't know about your father with the institution, but I'm set free from it and still in it.
Well, he never broke out of it.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know if it would have if things would have turned out for the better.
Mm.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that. I mean, I'm speculating at this point, um, but the thing that just like my dad taught me freedom. He taught me, but he also taught me that it put that splinter in my brain that there's something more. There's
Mm.
some we're missing something,
Yeah.
and that splinter festered and wouldn't be relieved, and then but when the solution to that came across my path, it was, oh yeah, I get this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I recognize this, and and one of the examples I think I used in I think the very first time we tried to record this is it's you can have your foot in both boats for a
Come on
while.
in, man.
Oh, is
We
Marty
we
here?
yeah. He's getting ready. Keep talking now,
Okay, so you can
because
have
you
your.
we didn't get this recorded.
No, we
You
didn't.
tried to.
Well, we did the first. Yeah, but yeah. So you
Yeah.
can have your foot in both boats for a while,
Come on in here, Marty.
Yeah.
but eventually there's going to be a decision point, and those boats are going to start to divide and begin to separate. And pretty soon you're going to have to pick one boat or the other, and
Or
you're
you're gonna
either
get wet. Yeah.
yeah, or sudden death. It's like you're in a pool full of piranhas, and you go in, you're not coming out. So you got to pick one or the other. And I have seen so many people pick the boat of
Institution.
counting on the institution to do it
Yeah.
versus disciple making is the only
Yeah.
way to do it. And man, what a great
Come
decision.
in, Marty. Come in real quick.
The fun part is when you realize disciple making is the way to do it, and you can feel comfortable sitting in the boat
What's
of
going on, guys?
institution. Hey, man.
How y'all?
Good. How
Say
are
it
you?
again, Jason.
All right.
Say it again, Jason.
What's that?
What were you saying?
Oh, I was saying what it's when you get to the point where you understand disciple making is the way to do this, but you're comfortable sitting in the boat of institution
Yeah.
and still carrying the same intention. That's when it gets fun because you're around people that are frustrated,
Right.
looking for more, and you're sitting there in freedom saying, "Hey, man, I know a better way." And you can still be on the Sunday morning thing. You can still be involved. I mean, where I'm at now, I'm involved. I mean, we're doing stuff with the church. I mean, my daughter's leading worship. I mean, we're doing things there. So, but my intention is radically different than it was
Right.
20 years ago when I was in church.
And the division of sit down, Marty, you're killing me.
Yeah. Let me get
Get
a
that
chair.
chair, man.
My knees are killing me.
He's sitting there
He
stooped
did look a
over,
little uncomfortable, hunched
and
over
my
there,
This
didn't
is
and
he?
my back
Jim.
my back's screaming for him. I'm like, sit down.
This is a
Old people.
surprise. This is a surprise.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. So
Yeah.
chime in whenever you feel like you want to,
Okay.
because it would be interesting to hear your perspective on
Oh,
what
I
we're talking
agree
about.
100
Now we're
percent
recording.
about the.
We're recording.
Okay.
He's like, I'm good. I'm gonna still say it.
About the institution, about like you said, people looking for more, wanting more. I agree with that 100%. As I
Yeah.
can see it in my everyday life,
Oh yeah.
with people.
Is that where
It's,
you were a year or so back?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I wasn't. I used to go to church all the time, and I was missing church, and I felt like that's what I needed to do. So me and my wife started, coming here, and I was having depression issues and stuff. And I seen Derek preach, and I didn't know him from Adam,
Yeah.
And I told my wife after that first service, I said, I think that's a man I could talk to.
Mm.
I've never talked to nobody. I could have went to a psychologist or
Right.
whatever, but I just felt like that was a person I could talk to.
And now and let me ask you this, what has been my intention with us?
To not be institutionalized and to give away information that's been given, not just to come hear it.
Yeah.
And for the
And
sake of
not,
Yeah.
not for the sake of me, but for the sake of somebody else.
And it changes everything when you live with that perspective.
It
It just
does.
sets you free to love and
Yes.
serve other people. Yeah.
And that's exactly right.
Freedom's tied up in it. That's awesome.
And the great thing about this intention, and um, this is what set me free a long, long time ago, was I understood because if I have the intention that Jesus had to impact the world, right,
Right.
then I don't have to be spiritual. I don't
Right.
have to be the best at something. I don't have to have the best discipline. I don't have to have all the eloquent speech of all these other people. You know, because of my intention, I feel like I'm playing tug of war with my rope tied to a rock.
Exactly.
You know, you can tug all you want to,
Right. That's right.
and you may look at me and go, well, you're not even breaking a sweat because I'm not pulling.
That's right.
Right? You're the one
That's right.
pulling. You're the one
Right.
trying to move a rock. And good luck with that, buddy. And the point
And
is, because I don't have to be all those things perfectly, that means
right,
you'll never beat me.
right.
I will win every time.
Yeah, and that's what me and Derek was talking about last week. And that's,
What were we talking about?
I mean, as far as, going out and trying to do it better, I mean, as far as he would want me to, but I know that I never could, you know.
Well,
Um,
and we go back and we talk about, like, I texted you this the other day, and I said, my intentions far outweigh what your understanding is,
exactly, right,
and I said I'm gonna, and I said that to him over a year and a month ago, which we literally have almost
right,
every week
yeah,
since October of 2022, and
yeah,
I told you, I said you're going to look back on your life in 6 months to a year,
right.
2 years, and you're going to be like, I don't even recognize that dude.
And he was right.
And my intention was
He
not
was
just
right,
to change him,
right,
but my intentions were to so move you outward that this thing that you came to me burdened with, which was you,
right,
is ultimately not going to be your issue anymore.
right,
And so you're going to be able to move
right,
out. You're going to be able to move out, not to be perfect. That's not why we've been meeting. I'm
right,
not training you to be perfect. I'm
right.
training you to move outward, because we've got a
Right.
world that's waiting to see the
And
Christ
that's
that's in you.
right. And see, I've struggled a lot with that. I mean,
Yeah, this process sets you free from yourself.
Yes.
right. And that's what needed to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and the freedom that comes to you, you can give away
Right.
and help
That's
other
right.
people realize they don't have to be enslaved to themselves, whether it's perfection or sin wrestling or whatever it is. Like you can forget about yourself in this process and really love and serve others
Yeah.
That's
and
exactly.
be set free
And
completely.
The good
I've gotten a
news.
lot better at that, but I still got a way to go. You
Sure.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
The good
long way
news.
to
All
go.
four of us have to die. All
Right.
four of us has to die. We got to go away so that somebody else can emerge.
Mm.
And when you're next on the chopping block, hey, it's just part of the contract, dude.
That's right.
Wait,
Yeah.
wait, wait. What? Now, what is that? I have to die. Wait a minute. I'm out. See y'all. I didn't know that.
What Marty say? Yeah, that's right. I'm
I
with
didn't read
you.
that line.
Amen.
Wait a minute. I thought this was for
Hallelujah.
me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like, okay, Jesus saying to the apostle Peter, right?
Right.
Jesus is saying, I've got to die. Peter's like, oh, God forbid. That's not what this contract's built
Right.
on.
Right.
And Jesus says, get behind me, because you're right now an offense to what my intention has been the intention the
Right.
Father's given to me,
And
which
actually
is,
called him
Intention
Satan.
is men's
yeah,
intention.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
and he
and
probably at one
because
point looked at Peter and says, "Don't be surprised because I'm gonna ask you to do the same thing shortly.
Yeah.
That's right.
You better
That's
buckle
right.
up, Buttercup. Here it comes.
That's right.
You're gonna
That's
follow
right.
me, and then it's gonna look like the same path."
Yeah.
Uh,
That's right.
and,
And it did. He followed him to the end.
and this is one of the phrases that I said in both previous attempts was that um, Jesus's intention was not understood by his men, but his intention was unswayed by their misunderstanding, and he
Right.
knew that his intention at the end of the day was going to win. So
Exactly.
that gives you a whole level, another level of confidence and irritation to those that do not understand what you're talking about.
That's right.
So
That's
what
right.
happens is we just learn how to throat punch, but we do it spiritually now.
Yeah,
Right.
Is what you're saying.
yeah. It's
Like y'all was talking about the institutions, like the more I'm around people like that, I want to say something, but then again, I don't want to be like he thinks he's
Yeah.
smart. You know what?
yeah, yeah,
Smart.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
you can
And
tell how I
you'll get better at doing that with some tact. I remember Bill told me one time. He's like, "Bro," he said, "you walk up to people and you punch them in the face." He said, "What
Right.
you need to learn to do is walk up with a grenade and just kind of smile at them, pull the pin, sit it on the table, and walk away and wait for the explosion to happen after you're gone."
that
That's right.
what's
Because
Bill
truth is
saying?
going to be the thing that really changes people. So
That's right.
Don't stab them in the back. Just take it and say, hey, I'm getting ready to stab you. You okay?
That's
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
you go up to him and you say, "Brother, I love you with the love of Jesus,
That's right.
but I've got to gut you right now."
This is gonna hurt.
That's right.
and you're not gonna like it, and you'll be mad at me. But you know what? I'm your best friend.
Because I actually had a guy come up to me probably last week. He said, "Why do you try so hard? I mean, it's something I want to do. I don't know if it kind of makes him
It offends him.
offends him, or what. I mean, because I don't really get much time at home, free time to read, so I kind of read on my breaks and stuff,
Yeah.
and say why you try so hard. And I mean, that's something I want to do. I mean, that's like say you play football. If you don't practice, you're not going to do nothing.
Right.
That's the way
And
I
it's an
feel.
internal motivation, not an external
Right.
one. It's something that God is doing, not
Right. Because I mean, I've never at work before. I mean, years ago, got a Bible or my phone out and read it. Never.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just something I want to do, and I think I need to do it.
Yeah. That's spirit led. Yep.
Right.
And now one thing with Marty that's I've been giving him these nuggets along the way, and one of the things is this genius of Jesus's strategy.
Right.
And Bill and Jason know very well about that, and I know what this guy is. Like I know that he's a throat puncher at heart. Like you would say you would fight your way to truth.
Right.
Like literally,
Right.
somebody disagreed with you or there was
Right.
confrontation, you're immediately
Right.
drawn to
And
this.
I'm scared of that. 'Cause I don't want
So
Get-
what have we been trying to do in this process? What have been my
to
intentions?
get rid of myself. I mean,
No, remember what
I
have
mean
we
to
been
help
saying?
others. Help others.
I've got a knife. I'm getting ready to gut you. You ready?
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So what have we've been saying that God doesn't want to change who He made you to be,
Right. Right.
but He wants to, like what
The
Jason
people
said
around.
earlier. He wants to he wants to get that passion that you have to be right under control, so it's not
Right.
hurting others, so it's
Exactly.
not killing others, and
Right.
And there is a time for that to come out. Because
exactly.
God will use you for certain people that need to be gutted. They need to be
Right.
punched in the throat.
Right.
There's just some people that just need to be done that way because they won't hear it any other way.
Yeah.
So-
Usually that comes out in the protection of others. Like,
Right.
if you have someone who is a weaker brother in the body, right? And you have a stronger brother pounding on the weaker brother, that's when that chutzpah, aggression comes out. Is because hey, you should not be pounding on your brother like that. So
Right.
now
Mhm.
I'm a strong of brother or stronger than you, so I'm gonna I'm gonna return the favor.
Exercise authority over it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And Marty, in that, the only way that you're gonna know when not to use that is to use it incorrectly.
Practice. Yeah.
Yeah, there's gonna be a time you're gonna go, man, I was a jerk. That was not good. I should not have done it that way.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
because I've done that. I've come across and it wasn't that I was protecting anything but probably myself. And
Right.
I come across and I was like,
And see, I've done that in the past where I'll, maybe not in a religious talk to someone, but like just say me and my wife or somebody, I'll say something, and later on I'll regret it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it just
Yeah. He uses all of that to teach us and to temper us.
That's right.
right.
But
I highly recommend you practice on Derek.
No,
it's all good, brother.
Just throat punch him every once in a while just to keep him honest.
I'm good. I'm good with that. And one of the good things about the third group of guys that Jesus chose, and you see, again, a very intentional disciple making tool that Jesus showed was these were the guys that they needed,
Right.
like the kingdom that Jesus was bringing in needed zealots because they're the
Hard.
ones that's going to get the job done.
right.
They're going to
Happening
be
here.
the one and there's that you're right, that heart. They
Right.
might not be the best leaders starting out because they're going to run into the fire. They're going to
Right.
bust through the wall. They're going to go in with guns blazing.
Yeah.
And then the process of that is, as those zealots that Jesus chose gave him time to work on them and hone them,
Right.
man, those guys would become a great force
Yeah.
for the kingdom.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
they were raw.
That's right.
They would use fists. They would use daggers. And,
Yeah. Well, every one of those groups has a purpose.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
And it's
think as you
taught me a
walk with the
lot.
Lord for a while, you start to develop the other traits a little bit. You always kind of have a primary. Peter's always going to be a Peter. Even when he got tempered, he still had the rash and push forward, because you need guys like that that's willing to move, and people
Right.
will follow them because they're movers. And
Yeah.
so you can't get somebody who's a thinker to lead a movement, because they're sitting around thinking about it forever, and nobody's ever going to follow them.
Yeah.
So, but once they get settled in the truth and they're moving, you're okay.
Yeah.
And then you're going to need people like zealots that need to come in and say, there's a time to push back.
No,
There's a time to fight. There's a time to throat punch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time to turn the tables over.
Yeah.
That's right.
But
And God
anybody,
asked us to be all those things eventually.
yeah, exactly.
So,
Right.
And
Yeah.
just for anybody that is listening that doesn't have a clue what we're talking about, the groups of disciples, because we're assuming that
I guess we should have prefaced it.
Yeah, we're assuming that you've heard the strategy that we teach, but if you haven't, go and look at the not genealogy, but the list of the disciples in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Acts, and you'll see that Jesus grouped his men by personality. And there's a pattern in that. And if you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, if you think I'm heretical, then you can feel free to email me, and I'll throat punch you through email.
You'll prove it. You'll prove it. Yeah, there's a primary guy in each one of those
Yeah,
groups
exactly.
as they
Each
list
group,
them. So,
the impulsive guys that are the make great leaders. Then you got the deep thinkers. Then you got the political revolutionaries that want to turn the table over and stab everybody. So
yeah.
and they all have a desire to bring, and like I think one of you said,
Different
Jason,
stuff.
you said they all have a purpose.
yes,
Yeah,
With
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
personality. They have a
Yeah.
purpose to bring the intention of the king, right? Like
Right.
Jesus the king, his intention is, let's go after the world. Well, guess what the world is full of? The world is full of basically those three groups
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, if you
in
break it down, that's about right.
it, for the most part, that's what Jesus is honing in. The intention with his guys is, hey, this is what you are. Don't change what you are,
Right.
but let the truth and the spirit make you, mold you,
Right.
move you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let it be your reason for movement.
And I
Yeah,
can tell.
I'll tell you. I mean, I'm to the point now where I've got probably a little bit of all of them, just because I've been at this a while and I've had to develop some of that stuff. But I remember early on, man, I wasn't an outright zealot, but I have a little bit of that I want to blow the whole thing up kind of feeling. And I would get myself in trouble a lot of times. And I remember we were at one church, and it was like a Wednesday night or a Sunday night little Bible study, and the pastor's up front, and he's going along his little devotional, message, and and he's sharing, and I'm wanting to push it, a little deeper, and so I'm throwing in, interjecting, and Bill's sitting in the pew in front of me, and at one point he just turns around, like he's in front, he just turns around, and he goes, "Shut up," and I went, okay, like I just was like. And what Bill was trying to get me to do was like, let him hang himself, let him waddle around in the mud up there and come to the frustration of it. You're bailing him out. Quit bailing him out.
yeah,
So yeah. So I learned kind of over time to be a little bit more, intentional, strategic. I'm still not great at it, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
well, probably 5 minutes before we die, we'll be complete. And then,
In that 5 seconds, man.
yeah, I'm giving
I
myself
was like,
a little
finally,
time.
I'm done with you. Come on home. Yeah. Yeah.
So we've been talking about intention. Is there anything else that we need to punctuate about intention? I think we've talked intentionally about intention.
Well, I know this. If I don't get off this thing soon. My wife's intentions will be to bust in here and punch me upside the head because we're leaving on a trip tomorrow and we got a lot to get
Oh,
done.
yeah, that's right.
So I better get rolling.
All right.
Are y'all
But it's
headed?
been great, man. Marty's finally nice to meet you and put a
Yeah,
Yes,
name
yeah.
to a
sir. You
face.
too. You too.
And I'm sure God will put us together over the coming days. So
All right,
bless you guys.
gentlemen. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
See you
See
guys.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye.